For today's interview, I wanted to give everyone a little perspective from a teacher. In fact, my Aunt Katie Chestnut, she is a teacher at Sweetwater Union High School District, and she can give us some insight into what it's like on her end. And MK, as I call you, MK, tell me a little bit about how you've been able to work from home and connect with students. I know that you work with ELD students, aka some may also know that as like ESL.
So we found out about a week before spring break started that we were not going to be attending school for the last week. So Thursday we had an assembly that was canceled suddenly. We were supposed to have our big spirit assembly. We'd been building up to it all week. That got canceled Thursday afternoon. Friday, around the same time, we got the email saying there will be no school until April 6th. And a lot of my kids were surprised. I was surprised, but we kind of knew it was coming based on everything that we'd been hearing in the news with all the other school districts shut down. Sure. So right now we're on spring break. We're a little bit lucky. We had some time to prepare as teachers, although we're not required to. Some of us are type A and a little nervous about what's coming. So we've been on the Facebook groups and Googling everything we can to see how we're going to transition from in-person learning to online. So it's going to be a lot of Google Classroom and situations like this where we're talking over camera.
But there's another added level of difficulty, especially in the class that you teach, in that not every student is going to have access to the internet or to a computer in order to learn. So how do you navigate that?
Our district is a one-to-one district. That means every student has had a device assigned to them. There was an issue at the beginning of the year that seniors wouldn't have laptops. Middle schoolers have iPads. Every single middle schooler has an iPad that they're using, and high school students have Lenovo ThinkPads. And within the last few months, the seniors have been able to get computers as long as they go into the library at their school and say, hey, I need a computer. So every student should have a device. What our district has done is sent out an email to parents asking them to let them know does your student have the device they're supposed to have? Do they have internet access inside of their house? Like, are they able to do what they need to do? I've read, I haven't checked my sources, that the Wi-Fi companies are making it so that even if you aren't a customer, you can connect to their hotspots. And I know that Verizon, for their customers who aren't unlimited, are giving them 15 gigs of data so that they can use their devices as hotspots. So hopefully that's, not everyone's going to have Verizon, not everybody's going to have Wi-Fi. We're still in the figuring this out stage. So when we go back from spring break on April 6th, we have 2 weeks to plan and develop our online classroom, and then we will hopefully know what our students have or don't have by then.
How has this process been for you? How have you been preparing? I know, as you said, some of the teachers prepare a little earlier than others. I know you very well, and I know that you've probably got many lesson plans ready to go. How do you then translate that and get it to your students who need it?
The way distance learning looks like it will be working for me, probably the majority of teachers, definitely the ones on Facebook who I have to thank for all of their ideas. You use Google Classroom, you share a slide, a worksheet, something. Now it's not going to be like you have in a typical classroom, you're not passing out papers, which is nice. That means that if I make an assignment, I only make it once and I don't have to run to the copy machine. So that's helpful.
Good for the environment.
You make your assignment, you share. What?
Good for the environment too.
Good for the environment. Honestly, I look at this as an opportunity to get to a more digital classroom. I have been working towards that, and this is, a quick boot that's getting me there. So students will have their slides, they will have their readings. We're going to have discussions there's a app called Flipgrid. It's a little like this, but it's a little more kid-friendly. That way students still get to interact with each other. I don't know yet if we're going to be doing synchronous learning, where everyone is here at the same time talking to each other, or if we'll be asynchronous and kids get to just watch videos of me. But I've been,
Do you
figuring it out.
prefer one or the other?
Knowing that everybody's getting instruction at once is nice. So the synchronous is nice, but I think asynchronous will end up being more beneficial for everybody. The other thing that we teachers and administrators have to think about, so some of these kids are at home and they're not at school, but they're supposed to be learning. Expecting students to be on the same schedule at home as they were in class or at school doesn't really make sense. They may have siblings at home, they may have multiple family members in the home, they may be doing a lot of other things, taking care of their house or their family that has nothing to do with school. And to expect them to focus on school in a time when, you know, we have a pandemic going on, it's probably not the wisest thing.
How do you also address the pandemic with your students? I mean, they're a little bit older, they're in high school, but it's still scary, I think, for anyone.
It is. So we call it social emotional learning. I actually was inspired by one of your interviews with the woman from the History Center, the archives.
Elsa?
Yes. So there was an assignment I saw that students could put together an archive of what they experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they can record videos and they can record their thoughts like a journal or a diary. And then the tech nerd in me was very excited because then they can use Google Slides, make it look cool.
Yeah.
But I can also do this, and I can tell them, look, we can share this with Elsa, and you guys get to be a part of making history. So I'm ELD, I'm language, but you know, history is still pretty important. And I think letting students do something that feels important where they can see the value right now and, you know, let them talk about their fears with value, that'll be very helpful for them.
And ELD students are multicultural. They come from very many different backgrounds. English isn't necessarily their first or second or third language, and for that matter. How are you able to kind of translate your work for them and reach them, even though if they decided to go home during this moment in time, they could be pretty far away from San Diego?
I'm lucky. Most of the students that I have around here in this area speak Spanish. So my Spanish is good enough that I can communicate with my Spanish-speaking students and their parents. For my students who speak Tagalog or Farsi or Arabic or Chinese, I don't speak those languages. I do my best with Google Translate, but because I have English and Spanish as my language, I can translate from English to Spanish, check to see if it makes sense. Like, did Google understand me? And then go to the next language and just cross my fingers. But it also means a lot of our lessons and what I teach uses visuals more than words.
Sure.
It's it's just kind of, you hope for the best with Google Translate if you don't speak the language.
Yeah, but the assumption is that most of these students have a basic knowledge of English when you're in their class. You're not there to teach them English from the basics. Ideally, you're there to help them improve their English.
I teach 2 levels. I teach English ELD 3, and those are the students you're describing. They have a very good understanding of English. I do all of my teaching in English, to the point that one of my ELD 3 students, who's dating one of my ELD 1 students, was very offended when he found out I spoke Spanish in ELD 1 because speakers don't understand English in ELD 1. But I did not speak Spanish in ELD 3. And I had to tell him, look, darling, you speak Spanish, and 8 of your classmates in this class speak Spanish, but 7 students speak Tagalog, 4 students speak Farsi, and 1 student speaks Arabic. So I can't speak Spanish. Okay, that's fair. He understood. But my ELD 1 students, they have a very basic understanding. Like, they're able to ask to go to the bathroom, they can say their name, they can respond to basic questions, but English is a language they're learning. Like, imagine your first day in a Spanish class or a French class in high school, that's where they're at. Yeah. So for them, and my Chinese students are my ELD 1 students, so they are in the same boat as my Spanish speakers, where we cross our fingers and pray to Google Translate.
It's also really interesting about you, MK, during this pandemic, as not only are you a teacher, and I know we can't super deep dive into this, but your husband, Will, is also Harbor Police, and so he's out there on the front lines, and he comes home, and you're still trying to organize lesson plans. So kind of tell me how this pandemic has affected you personally.
This has been interesting. One, there was the absolute conviction that I had it and was dying because I was recovering from pneumonia as this started. So I've been home a lot longer than 14 days, although it feels like 14 years at this point.
Sure.
With Will, he's used to me working from home. As you know, because you're, well, my niece, I edit a magazine. So there's a lot of times I'm at home when I say, you can't talk to me, I'm working. Now those times have just stretched out. For me, though, what makes me nervous is that he is out every single day. So I'm doing the right thing, the socially responsible thing. I'm quarantining myself, only going out for the absolute essentials. Because he's essential, he's going out every day. And so he comes home and I have to hope that he, one, hasn't come in contact with somebody who has the virus, and also that that virus doesn't grow wings and jump off his clothing onto me as before he puts it into the laundry hamper and showers and washes his hands.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me feel like my self-quarantining is a waste for myself, but I know it's also important for the rest of the people around me. As far as the working goes, though, you'll find a lot of times here in my dining room, he'll see me on the sofa, and that's when we can't watch Tiger King because I'm working.
Yeah, you're get sucked in. You gotta be careful.
It's distracting. So it's, yeah, thanks for that, Netflix. So
Yeah.
it's been, the working from home hasn't been a difficult transition. The teaching from home, especially because his days off are I think Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are going to be right in the middle of teaching. So I can't just send him outside and say, go work on a boat.
Yeah.
That'll be loud. So we'll have to see how that goes.
So funny. And if people are wondering, we haven't fully explained, we are basically the same age, MK and I, even though she's technically my aunt. Yes. My grandfather is her father. He had my mom, and then he had MK, 27 years later?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. And that's why we're the same age, basically, but she's technically my aunt, so I have to listen to her and everything that she does. Is there anything you want to add or say, during this crisis pandemic to anyone who's watching this, just maybe your words of wisdom or advice on getting through this?
Man, I wish I'd known that was coming.
No, because then you prepare, and I want it to be off the cuff.
Off the cuff. I don't even have cuffs. Honestly, I know this is a scary time for people who are health compromised. Don't be afraid to reach out to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Go on the Facebook groups or next door and see what you can do to connect with your community that is safe. And as a writer and an English teacher, turn to your journal, turn to your notebook, do something that makes you happy. Take advantage of the quarantine to do something that makes you grow and happy. Don't just stress.
Thank you so much, Katie Chestnut, for giving us some insight into what it's like to be a teacher during this absolutely wild time in history here in San Diego.
Glad I could join you.